Is Thomas Castellanos the right quarterback for Florida State? And is he a better fit for the Noles than what Carson Beck will be for the Hurricanes?
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst and writer. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. From big upsets and game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets, guaranteed win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, I have 7 questions for Florida State fans as I'm on the road again to check out some recruiting events here in the Orlando area. I have 7 that are going to start off with a bang because it's going to be about the quarterback position, but it's going to be all-encompassing, and it's going to conclude with discussions about first-round draft picks currently on Florida State's roster or players joining the team. So I want your opinions. Fire away on YouTube. I'm curious to hear what you have to say, or find me on X at FBScout_Florida. First thing that I have is a rather easy one. I don't think many people will go away from this question. This is probably about the most common question in football amongst fans and fan bases that don't like each other. And it's a Miami versus Florida State, Canes versus Noles, Seminoles versus Hurricanes, however you want to say it. Is Thomas Castellanos a better fit for Florida State and Gus Malzahn in the offense that he's going to operate with Mike Norvell? Or newly acquired Carson Beck from the University of Georgia, he's going to the University of Miami. Is he a better fit for what they're going to do down in Coral Gables? Here are 2 thoughts on that scenario with an additional caveat attached to Beck. First off, Thomas Castellanos couldn't be any more of a carbon copy of what Gus Malzahn wants in terms of athleticism, arm strength, ability to stretch the field, and his ability to extend plays. From getting to know Gus during his time at UCF, be very clear. He wants his quarterback to be the game changer more often than not. Not that he doesn't really like running backs and receivers, etc. R.J. Harvey, for instance, this past couple of seasons for the Knights was a big-time player. He was their game changer. But to that end, Florida State has a lot of different guys at the skill spots that can make plays, but they want to be more than what UCF was. That's just reality. UCF has kind of peaked, and they don't seem to have the ability to get up over that with their NIL, etc. It's a different level here at Florida State in terms of what they could be based on what's going on with all the additions to the program. I'm curious to see if Castellanos, just like everybody else, can be that guy. And I think he can if Gus Malzahn and Norvell can truly combine their thoughts and put it together for Castellanos. I think they can have a huge year on offense and push 30 points a game pretty quickly, and against a lot of teams score more than 30. Now, there's a lot of moving parts here. The O-line's being reconstructed. You're adding Deuce Robinson, Squirrel White. Landon Thomas is in his second year. You bring in the Biscuit back from Arizona State. You have so many different pieces coming in, but it's going to be a massive offensive line. You have plenty of running backs. Why not? You got Chroma coming in out of the high school ranks to help. You got a bunch of young receivers. Yeah, I think it could be good. As for the Miami part, this is more complex, to be honest. You have quite a few good players, but Isaiah Horton, your boundary receiver, transferred to Alabama. That surprised me a little bit, but he took off. He had a pretty good year, but he left. Does Beck's arm matter? I think it does, because he had a very unfortunate injury in the game against the SEC title game against Georgia or Texas. Look, I'm not trying to be mean, but how do we know that he's going to even be healthy by the summer and he can be in tip-top shape for the season? So just that alone gives me an edge towards Florida State. But Beck does have a lot of incredible moments in his career. He's been a national title quarterback. Okay. But there's also one other factor with it. And I'm going to share my screen for those of you that are on YouTube for this, but I have some of the stats up from 2023. Then I'll flip it to 2024 for Carson Beck. This is from Pro Football Focus. Now, it's usually the other way around, excuse me, but Beck actually went down from 23 to 24. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you look at his numbers, 22 TDs, 6 interceptions, and only 7 plays per Pro Football Focus that they call a turnover-worthy play. Like, he kept the ball out of harm's way. That's a great number. He's playing in the Southeastern Conference. He's consistent. He had 15 big-time throws. They probably didn't ask quite as much of him, but he threw for over 3,000 yards. That's pretty darn good. But we fast forward to the current season that he just finished up at the University of Georgia. Yardage is almost the same, a little less than 100 yards difference, but he had 18 turnover-worthy plays. Carson Beck is going in the wrong direction, and he's hurt. Not one or the other, both. With that being stated, I know he's a very talented guy, and it wasn't his fault, just by Pro Football Focus. I think this number is actually low. 28 drops by the Georgia receivers, tight ends, and running backs. That is horrific. That's not Carson Beck's fault, but I think he was a little gun shy with that. He had 22 big-time throws, but he forced things. He put the ball in harm's way, had 12 picks this season. I think that he has regressed and he is injured. For that reason, I would rather have Thomas Castellanos, and I really don't think it's all that close. And I'm not saying Carson Beck is bad, because overall the fit that he has for Miami is good. I'm just curious, is his head right? And of course, is his right throwing arm, the elbow or the shoulder, whatever combination of injuries the young man has, I hope he gets over them. Are they going to be capable? Are they going to be capable of overcoming those at Miami? Because you can't go through fall camp and have a court say they think he's the guy and he gets most of the reps, and then towards the end of fall camp, his arm's bothering him or something again. I think it's a high-risk move to take him. I know On3 has him as the number 1 player or whatever. I think that's extremely ridiculous. I don't think he's a top 15 player because of the injury right off the bat. I wouldn't even, no chance in the world I'd put him in the top 15 because he's coming off a severe injury like that. Quarterbacks and arm injuries, very bad. So with that being stated, if it works out for him, that's great. I don't know anything about Carson. I don't know him. But at the same time, Castellanos is a guy I know, and his fit is very, very good. And again, if Malzahn can blend his offense with Norvell's thoughts, and they have similarities, you could see an explosive offense for Florida State. We'll see if that happens. Here's the second question that I have for you today. Does defense still win championships? I was going over some of the stats and looking at the teams that were like in the final 8 and especially the final 4. Yes, it does. If you look at sacks, third down defense, the opportunities to make plays on defense are very, very key. For instance, the game last night went back and forth between Penn State and Notre Dame. The Irish didn't play that well in the first half on defense, but they made some key plays in the second half, held Penn State down. And of course, they get a big interception late in the game, less than a minute, if I remember correctly, and they win the game. Notre Dame's third down defense was elite, and they also led the nation in takeaways. That got them to where they are, because it's not like Notre Dame's offense is elite. It's far, far from it. They're better than average, and they're timely. I believe it was like 11 out of 17 they hit on third downs against Penn State because of Riley Leonard, but it's Notre Dame's defense that's carrying them. In the history of Florida State, to put it into context, this is what carried Florida State. Everybody thinks about Charlie Ward and all these different Peter Warwick and all that, and that's great. It's still Peter Boulware and players like that that are the bottom line. You've got to have guys coming downhill in that front 7 that intimidates the other team. Like last night, there's no doubt Drew Aller was off his back foot, leaning back when he threw that pass, ill-advised, and it was intercepted. He did not want to get hit again. Defense wins championships, period. Never forget that. It is a fact that will not change. When we come back, we're going to talk about the offensive line that Florida State has built through the portal, how they should do it in the future, what they've done so far. How do they mesh that together to make this not just a successful offensive line for the Noles at 25, but long-term? That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. This is a message from your sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Are you tired of endless waiting, wondering, and worrying about your taxes? Well, now that's a thing of the past. You see, taxes don't need to be complicated or stressful. TurboTax is here to change the game by matching you with a TurboTax expert who can get you work on your return right away. No more waiting for answers, no more wondering if you're going to be missing out on deductions, whether you've got one form or 20. TurboTax experts give your taxes their undivided attention while you get real-time updates on their progress. So you can focus on what really matters. You won't have to lift a finger, but you'll get the peace of mind knowing that your taxes are being handled by the pros. Ready for the stress-free taxes and money back guarantee? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get matched with your expert who's ready to take your taxes off your plate so you can focus on your day. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right. The offensive line for Florida State, I've been giddy about what they've done in the portal, and you should too as a Florida State fan. But that doesn't mean that what's happened this year will definitely work. I think it will, but we'll see. And it does not mean this is the way to do things long term. We've already seen how this can end badly. It just happened in the rearview mirror just a couple months ago. October, November, oh boy, that was brutal. Teams knew Florida State couldn't handle basic stunts, basic blitzes, and the quarterbacks and running backs just took a beating. To build a team properly, and to build off that last question, talking about defense, there's something that most of the teams that made a deep run in the playoffs did. The bulk of their rosters are built through high school recruiting. This question was brought up because I want to remind people of that. This is a topic that I've talked about a gazillion times. This is a topic that I will talk about until I die. You build your roster through players you get to know over a long period of time, not the portal, to get the best chance. It's not a lock, but the best chance to go win a championship. Now, Florida State's in a circumstance right now, they don't have any option. They're so far behind on the O-line, there was zero chance they weren't going to go get 4 more guys in the portal. And I really think 5. We'll see. They still got a ways to go for this cycle to be completely done. And then, of course, another portal window will open after spring ball. So that 10-day window is far from now. So a little ways to get to that. But while Florida State is doing a very good job right now with the portal, I got no problems with it. That does not mean it's the way to go. As a point of reference, I'm pretty sure that multiple teams that were in the playoffs either had like one player on the portal from their offensive line or none. I don't think Notre Dame even has one. I want to say Penn State, Rucci, the tackle, he was from Pennsylvania, but went to Wisconsin. He had a brother there. Then he transferred back to Penn State. Like 1 or 2 guys. That's kind of the norm. Most teams, especially up front, that's got to change for Florida State. Now, they hit the home run, but again, we need to see that number change and change quickly beginning next year. Next question. From the transfer portal, should the Noles continue to take proven players, even if they are from smaller schools, or should they go back to the method they used this past year and go after more of the highly rated kids that they went after but didn't sign, that go to another school, whatever one it may be, doesn't work out, and then take them even if they haven't produced? So in essence, are you going after the elite talent that you've seen on film from high school, or are you going after the production you've seen, even if it's a lower level player, at the college level? It's the production. And the reason I say that is what a lot of teams are doing. For one, Indiana did that with a ton of kids, FCS, G5, etc. They're one of the worst programs in the history of Division I football. I believe they have the most losses. They went 11-1. And I know Indiana's schedule was cake this past year, but they still won 11-1. That's impressive. They beat the bejesus out of most teams they played. Proven production every single time. And a big reason the kids that have all the talent aren't producing is not what they're capable of on the field. It's a lack of taking care of business off the field. getting in trouble by chasing girls, drinking, drugs, stupidity with class, not working out, bad sleep habits, not listening to coaches, not listening to strength and conditioning people. The number of stories I have from across college football, whether it's players at Florida State or any other school over the last 25, 30 years, is insane. Same thing over and over again. You're really picking maturity over immaturity in this circumstance. Take the proven production. Number 5, does Florida State have a 2025 player that will develop into a first-round draft pick? I say yes, and I think there's a couple of different ones. You have an opinion on this, whether I'm wrong or you think there's another guy, fire away. But I think Deuce Robinson has an excellent chance to be one. The transfer from the University of Southern California out wide. I believe he'll be a boundary receiver. And I also think that eventually he won't be eligible after this next season, but Landon Thomas has a chance. Amari Williams to that point will as well. Maybe Darrell Jackson with his size could be a first-round draft pick. There are a lot of different possibilities for Florida State. I'm not sure which other players could, but there's so many athletically gifted players on the roster. It's hard to say. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the DBs, like Quindarius, he's got the length, and it's ironic because I'm pretty sure Florida State was his only major Division I offer, P4. And he ends up at Florida State. He's played quite a bit. Now he's probably going to be a 2-year starter. 6'1", 6'2" corners or something the NFL covets. Wouldn't be shocked. So, yes, I think that they will. Could somebody else? Absolutely. The Williams kid that transferred from Nebraska. The list is long. What do you think? Again, comment or question on the YouTube page, Locked On Seminoles. Curious to hear what you have to say. Which Seminole leads the team in catches next year? Now, notice I said catches, not yards, not touchdowns, not yards per reception, just sheer volume receptions. This is a trick question, and I asked it purposefully, although I'm obviously giving you a big hint. It will not necessarily be Deuce Robinson, although I think he will probably lead them in TDs. My pick is Squirrel White, and the reason is the offense that he plays in. Florida State has a very unique offensive system coming in with Malzahn. You will see Squirrel get a gazillion throws less than 10 yards from the line of scrimmage to try to continuously make the defensive players think, dive down, come down hard. And they will run all kinds of fake screens, double passes, reverses, fake screen this way, throw back. They try to fool your eyes and just get you to overcommit. Because a simple play, like a fake to Squirrel, like he's caught a couple of screens in a game, throwing a pass. Oh, no, he's not. He turns around and throws it to Landon Thomas out in the flat, Cam Davis, B.J. Gibson. It doesn't matter. With Florida State's athleticism, those kinds of plays, a 5-yard game becomes an 80-yard game. It's about deception. It's about players being disciplined. And then it's also about, even if it's just a bunch of passes that are short, catching Squirrel White is not fun. He is very fast. He runs by guys really, really quickly. Makes them look bad in space. So I think he could average 10, 11 yards a catch, but he could also catch 75 balls this next year. Would not be surprising to me at all. And it, quite honestly, it shouldn't be to you. Any slot receiver, smaller guy with a lot of speed, there's a good chance, as long as Malzahn's in Tallahassee, he will lead Florida State in receptions. I have one more question for you after the break, and it's a big box question that I'm going to add an extra part to on the offense. That's next here on Locked On Seminoles. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Visit the website. You can check out all the different options for you. You might be a guy that's an over-under guy. I personally like that kind of stuff. Prop bets, that's a lot of fun. So you do what you want for you. Just visit FanDuel.com today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com. Make the playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Last question with a little extra part, depending on how you want to approach it. Will Florida State average more than 28 points a game in 2025? I say yes, and it's for a couple of reasons. I'm going to ask this of you. You can answer it however you want, and then come up with the original answer as well. How could they not improve vastly when you've got 4 experienced offensive linemen coming in from the portal that are proven, not just guys that played, but are proven positive production, not just special teams guys, etc., players with literally thousands of snaps. They're going to be so much better on the offensive line, it's not even funny. You're adding Deuce, you're adding Squirrel. You're also going to have a much more experienced and mature group at tight end, because Landon Thomas and Amari Williams, freshmen, they were good, but I'll take the sophomore versions. Bigger, faster, stronger, more knowledgeable. Makes sense, right? And I also just think the receivers, they have to be better than they were last year at catching the ball. They're going to make more big plays. Again, it just seems like it would be impossible not to. Florida State may not be dominant this next year on offense, and I'm not saying that you should think that, but I also believe that Florida State will be comparable to at least an above average ACC offense. With all the moving parts, they might have some games where they bog down. I will give you that. But I think 25 is like a low end on what they should average. High end should be low 30s. That's somewhere in that range. It's pretty broad, but you still got to see how the pieces fit. Maybe they don't gel. I don't know. But with as many skill players as they brought in, you got Jalen Lucas back, you got Cam Davis, you got Mekhi Danzy, you got Singleton, you got so many good running backs to move around that can catch and can be part of the special teams. Florida State should be in position to push for 30 points a game, give or take, maybe 31. Right in that range is where I see them. And there's really no reason for Florida State football to ever think they should be below that. I doubt anybody is going to disagree. Here's the other thing with it. I think they're going to be able to play a lot of 4-minute offense when they want to. This is something that Gus has talked about at press conferences that I've been in, covering him at UCF. And it's something that his tempo offense can take away from teams. And it's so unique. You press the gas early in the game. You get a lead, even if you're behind, whatever. You wear out the other team's defense. But you also slow it down in certain circumstances for key plays, et cetera, to make sure you get maximum execution, get the right players in the game. But at the end of the game, you have the ability to run the 4-minute offense. You may go fast, get up to the line, so if they try to substitute, you catch them, get too many men on the field, that kind of thing. But at the same time, that clock's bleeding. The defense is tired, defensive linemen, hands on hips, downhill, something that Gus talks about a lot, and it's something that Norvell has tried to feature as he's been here at Florida State. You combine those things, that's how you beat teams. And you may not have a dominant offensive performance, but in that late third quarter and all the way through the fourth quarter, you're able to beat the bejesus out of the team in front of you and punch it a couple of times. You may only had 17 points through 3 quarters, but your last 2 drives you scored. You get to 31. How you use your offensive tempo with the talent you have, combining those 2 things, I think can give Florida State an edge. Just my opinion. I'm curious once again what you think. Go ahead and fire off a comment, a question, both on Locked On Seminoles YouTube page. Really appreciate you stopping in to see us again today. Everybody have a great weekend. But before you leave, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe if you have not already. Truly appreciate you stopping in to see everything we got going on here at Locked On Seminoles. I will see you again on Saturday. Have a good day.